Hello and welcome to another weekly update. And this week there's a couple of blog posts I put out that I wanted to just dig into a little bit and kind of wrap up what's been happening this week. So I don't know if you remember, but a little while ago, last month I think, or maybe even in April, I put out a blog post about external access coming to Microsoft Teams. And at the time, I pointed to a couple of different posts and a couple of different bits of information that indicated that that feature would be coming in June. Now, obviously, we're very nearly at the end of June. I'm actually recording this on the Thursday this week because I'm busy on the Friday, so everything might change tomorrow. Who knows? But as of right now, that feature is still not there. And there's been an update from Microsoft just to say they are definitely still working on it, and it has slipped slightly. So it looks like it's not going to be in June, but hopefully not too much later. Now, obviously, this is a little bit annoying or a little bit sad or whatever for anyone who's relying on it, but it's kind of understandable. And I kind of went on a mini rant in the blog post, and I'm at risk of doing the same thing again now. But really, what I was trying to say is this is a very different style of development and delivery that Microsoft have approached and are, have adopted in the past couple of years. It's much more agile. It's not these big 3-year life cycles. It's much more iterative. It's doing much smaller releases much more often. And the other thing that Microsoft have chosen to do is be much more open with the community, with us, about what's coming, about the features they're working on, and the things that are being done. And so that means that we even knew they were doing this feature. They told us they were going to do this feature. They told us they were doing this feature in April. And now they've told us that they are still doing this feature, and it's just taking a little bit longer than before. It's very easy to be quite negative about this and say, oh, it's it's taking too long. I wanted it by now, and now I don't have it, and everything is terrible. And there are some negative comments going on in the user voice on the user voice platform for this feature. And there's some people saying some stuff like, I committed this to a customer, and now I'm gonna have to let them down, and stuff like that. And I just don't think that's helpful. I don't think that kind of reaction is particularly helpful. Honestly, if you've committed something to a customer because of something you read in user voice, then the problem's with you. This is not a commitment Microsoft have made, and it's not a hard and fast. It's not an SLA. Nothing is signed. There's no comeback. This is Microsoft trying to be open and saying, look, this is what we're working on. This is the date we're aiming for. Sorry, this is what we're doing. It's going to be done when it's done. It's not going to be shipped early if it's not ready. Nobody wants that anyway. Nobody wants usability issues. Nobody wants security issues. External access is a hard problem to solve. That it's got to be done right, and it will be done when it's done. I know all that, and I think all that because I've spent 10 years as a developer. I know exactly how hard estimating and then delivering software on time is. If you haven't been in that space, then maybe you don't have the same thoughts I do. Maybe you think this is more unreasonable than I do. But I would encourage you to go looking around and read some blog posts about software estimation, read the Mythical Man Month, read all these things. Estimating software is hard. You are estimating something that has literally never been written before. You don't know the problems you're going to run into. So I cut Microsoft a great deal of slack over this. I don't think it's a big issue. I think it's going to be, by the sound of it, external access is kind of around the corner. It's their number one priority at the moment. It's what they're working on. It's going to be done when it's done. And when it's done, it's going to be great and everyone's going to love it. And until then, we're just going to have to wait for it. And I don't think that's that big of a deal. So that was kind of that blog post. I wanted to put that out there. And then the other exciting thing that happened just today, actually, I put a blog post out today because I noticed that there's a new item on the the Office 365 roadmap. Now, coming back to my last point about Microsoft being more agile and more open, they've opened up their entire roadmap to us. There's a public-facing roadmap for Office 365. That's completely like unheard of 5 years ago. Certainly for Microsoft. Still now, many development companies, you go to them after their roadmap, you'll get some very cagey answers because nobody likes to commit to stuff. Because committing and then failing to meet the commitments, yeah, it's annoying. It's embarrassing. It shouldn't. It's nobody wants it to happen. So people are very cagey about roadmaps. But Microsoft have opened up their entire Office 365 roadmap. You can go and look at it. You can see the stuff that they're working on right now. You can see the stuff that's planned. You can see the stuff that's released. And I noticed today that there is a new feature that is being worked on, which is to add Microsoft Teams commands to manage, Microsoft PowerShell commands to manage Teams. So that's pretty exciting because as of now, you can't really manage Teams and you can't really configure Teams programmatically. So anything that allows us to do that would be brilliant. And it sounds like there's going to be a set of PowerShell commandlets that are being worked on right now. So that's very exciting. That's very interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing those. I think it's going to be really good for IT admins and people who have to look after large numbers of teams in big companies where people are spinning up teams all the time. And then maybe the project ends and they kind of forget about them. So it'd be good to have someone going around and tidying those things up. Or maybe it's a bit more restrictive environment where you want to control how teams are created, and so lock that process down a little bit. But also I think it'll be good for developers because it'll be good to automate some of that stuff. So maybe you want to create a team in response to an event. Maybe let's random example, disaster management, and you want to quickly create a new team from scratch and then bring in relevant people into that team to coordinate on a particular event. So bringing programmatic access in PowerShell is great. There is some other stuff as well. It sounds like reading kind of some of the other user voice entries. There's some other interesting things they're going to use PowerShell for. But I think we'll just have to wait and see for the detail. I don't really want to kind of second guess it. And I think there's talk as well about a kind of developer API, probably for doing the same sort of things. It's just a different way of accessing it. Maybe you'll use the API, maybe you'll use PowerShell. So that's all really good. And again, these kind of two blog posts complement each other quite nicely because again, it comes back to Microsoft being super open about the stuff they're working on right now and the stuff that's coming. And I think that's a really good thing. The only other thing I wanted to point you to today for your weekend reading really is a really excellent blog post that's been put out by the Bot Framework team. And it's about speech support in Bot Framework. And it talks about how to use Webchat to going from Webchat to Directline and then Directline to Cortana, which is kind of really interesting because it now means that really without doing very much more code, you can take what your already text-based bot and just use the microphone features just kind of that come almost for free really, and open up your bot to accept speech. I'm not going to attempt to summarize the blog post because there's 3 or 4 really interesting places it goes. So it's worth just reading it through and seeing all the different things it does, and just kind of reading it through. It's a pretty easy read. It's well put together, although some of the concepts are kind of quite advanced. It does take you through them in good detail. So that is absolutely worth a read. One of the interesting things like I've noticed recently is I'm spending a lot of time on these weekly updates and actually on my blog as well, talking more about Microsoft Teams than I am about Skype for Business. And that's not, I don't prefer one over the other. I think they are two kind of separate things. They've each got their own place. They've got their own forte. They have their own advantages. They have their own disadvantages. Really, with something like the weekly update, I'm responding to changes that are happening. And just right now, just because I think of the age of the products, it's happening. It just happens to be that the Teams product is iterating faster than the Skype for Business product right now. So there's more kind of stuff happening over on Teams than on Skype for Business right now, and that's the only real reason for a bit of more focus over on Teams. I still love all the Skype for Business stuff. Still definitely going to keep up the blogging and the kind of videos and stuff on the Skype for Business side. But right now there's a lot happening in the Teams space, so just kind of want to keep on top of that as well. All right, so that's pretty much me for the week. I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed that nothing amazing happens tomorrow, so I can get this weekly update out without having to kind of record a kind of edit on the end of it. But in the meantime, have a fantastic weekend, and I will talk to you next week.